Hello and welcome to Find Out Nation. I'm one of your hosts, Jaime.
I'm one of your hosts, Nicole.
And we are here with you today to celebrate another episode where we explore what happens in a nation when you fuck around and you find out. Nicole, I know we are less than 2 years from our next major election. With that said, you are our countdown keeper. So proceed with the countdown and the count up, both.
Yes. So we're 581 days away from midterms. So we're getting there.
I love it.
581.
Okay.
We are 70 days into the Trump presidency 2.0. And I have this little nugget that I got late this afternoon that I want to give. So in 70 days, he has now cost taxpayers I'm so sorry. Let me start over. He has now cost taxpayers $26 million. And 9 out of the 10 weekends he's been in office playing golf at his own courses. To keep it in perspective, he spent a total of $151.5 million during his entire first presidency. And in the first 10 weekends, he's already spent $26 million.
Is it because
and 9 out of those 10 weekends has been golfing?
And is it because he hosted his own like Trump terminal and we include that in our amounts just out of curiosity? You know what I'm saying? Like he hosted his Trump tournament that he had to win. Right.
That he had to win. Right. Well, I know that what goes into that is the cost of flying Air Force One, which is hugely expensive. The cost of when he is
Secret Service.
I'd read this at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, the Secret Service. But at Mar-a-Lago, they have Navy boats out in the water as Secret Service protection as well. Yep. And then Secret Service is staying inside Mar-a-Lago, which he then turns around and bills the government for.
Love that.
Yep. So $26 million in the first 10 weekends.
Done.
But Doge is really out here killing it, finding all this waste, abuse, and fraud.
Major waste and efficiencies. That is correct. I love it.
Workers left and right.
Right. We have also started getting some comments on our posts, so we'll address those at the end of the podcast. So if anyone just comes on here with the express purpose of hearing our response to the comments that have been left on our YouTube posts, fast forward to the end.
That's right.
It has been busy. Like putting together the list of like topics we're going to talk about. I don't know that we're going to get through all these topics. It has been fucking busy. Let's start with.
You thought you were going to go on vacation.
Girl,
and
I know.
Back and things were going to be easy, breezy, beautiful, but you were
I know. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Okay, let's start with the attack plans that were shared through Signal texts.
You're ridiculous. These were not war plans.
They were war plans.
But
they were attack plans. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And emojis. That meant nothing.
Yes.
Can I just say, we touched on this briefly on our last podcast because it was like breaking news that day. Right.
Yeah.
That there was a text chain. The Atlantic editor-in-chief, Goldblum, got added to the text chain and plans were shared. At the time, I think you and I were both like, okay, did I say Goldblum? Goldberg. Anyway, so I think at the time you and I were both like, oh my God, that's just crazy. I can't believe that happened, right? At this point, what we've discovered is that it was with the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. It was with Pete Hegseth. It was like with a lot of high profile people. And it was, and it was specifically about the attack plans on Yemen. And it was through Signal, and somehow Jeff Goldberg got added to this text chain. At first, he's like, these are sensitive plans. I shouldn't share any of them. You should just know I got added to them. Then they're all doubling down about, no, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And he's like, okay, bitch, here are my receipts. You see them, and it's like, right, you can't deny it. It's obvious. You cannot deny it. And then, like, they like first start talking about, no, it didn't happen. And then they are like, oh, he must have added himself to the text chain, or my phone must have malfunctioned. Do you remember the commercial? And if you don't remember it, go look it up, where the old women were standing in her living room and she was taping pictures to the wall. And she's like,
Yes.
I posted this on the wall. And the one old lady's like, this isn't how any of this works. Like,
Right.
that is how this looks to me. Like, oh my God, you bumbling, fumbling idiots.
Yeah, one of the screenshots clearly shows that Waltz is the one that added him to the chain, and that it was set to delete in like 4 weeks. So clearly breaking the, National Archives, the records
Yes.
thing.
So,
but then like they just, and I think he would have kept it quiet if they hadn't started attacking him.
100%. I 1000% agree. And here's my thing. So I listened to Pod Save America this week, who really dove deep into this whole thing. And a couple of things, like, first of all, to your point, by communicating through text, it is not part of the presidential archive. It's not part of the archival records. Like, it's violating a problem right there. So that's a problem. The second thing is, like, a lot of people view Trump and his team as supposed to be like the head bitch in charge, right? Like, these are supposed to be people that know what they're doing. And so to watch them fumble like this, like, the big question was, will this make a difference? And of course, we know that there's a whole group of Republicans that it'll make no goddamn difference for. But I've got to believe that for some, they have to be looking at this and being like, ugh, this is not good. Like, oh, do these people actually know what they're doing in an era of technology? And like, it's not just firing fucking bombs at people anymore, dudes. It's like, you have to know how technology works, even just how to communicate so that you're not disclosing secret plans to bomb Yemen to like a reporter. I mean, how stupid do you have to be? The other thing, an MSN article pointed out, despite all these questions, somehow the most important part of the story isn't getting any attention. It's, why is America bombing Yemen in the first place? How many people are being killed in the bombings? Who are they? And if Congress hasn't voted on it, are the bombings constitutional? Like, it's a good question. Are they a violation of the United Nations Charter? And of course, the text messages don't say that. Shocking.
And, well, no. And so a couple of things. First of all, on that very particular note, I thought I had missed something. I'm like, there's so much shit happening every day.
Yeah.
Did I miss we bombed Yemen? Because I totally didn't remember that being any part of a news cycle until all of a sudden it's like, hey, look at these dumbasses on Signal Chat. Look at these fucking morons talking about bombing Yemen. Like, I didn't remember ever hearing that we were bombing Yemen.
100,000%. I had no idea until the Signal Chat came out. And then you're like, holy fucking shit. Why are we bombing Yemen again? Like, I get it. They even joked on Saturday Night Live that like, Donald Trump is, following in the footsteps of all of the previous presidential leaders over the last, like, whatever years and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I get that it's just like the thing we do is bombing Yemen, but why haven't we like talked about this at all? But then on top of that, like, what kind of stupid nationals, and will they continue to do it? Donald Trump has said that he is not punishing anyone. He's not firing anyone. Like, nobody's getting in trouble for it. The White House came out and was like, oh, we're done. Like, we're done with our investigation. What the fuck does that mean? And at this point, I know that there's at least 2 security advisors. Who is it that are going to sue to research why this happened and what they're going to do about it? So they're calling on Congress, like, to actually do, create a special counsel. I mean, James Comey, he was the one that, looked into the emails and Hillary Clinton. And before that, like, it in general, when there are breaches like this, we always have special counsel appointed to investigate these kinds of things. And that's just not happening this time. Like, no, what does that say?
Yeah. And, Tulsi Gabbard and what's his name stood up there and lied right to Congress's face.
Yeah.
So it's fine. But also, I think what kills me is that when Trump is asked about it, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
At
and
first,
when you read the texts, JD Vance is saying, I don't know that I heard the president say that he's on board with this. Like, I think this needs more discussion, da 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 da. And then here comes head Nazi Stephen Miller. And he's like, no, I clearly heard Trump. He's on board with it. He's not governing. We knew he wasn't going to govern. He has no intention in governing. All he wanted was to win the election. He won the election, and he's handed that shit over to other people.
100%.
That's been the goal all the way around. But this is like they're bombing other countries in our name. We don't fucking know about it. And they're talking about it on, yes, an encrypted messaging app, but it's only encrypted at the ends. It's not encrypted. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very hackable by Russia and China, which is why they're not allowed to use it.
That's right. And you know what kills me about all this is, to your point, it brings up a bigger question about Donald Trump. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if the real governing, the things that affect our day to day, are 100% someone else making those decisions.
Yeah.
And it's Donald Trump that's doing the dumb shit, the Gulf of America shit, you know. And what's interesting is that I have always believed that it's Donald Trump that is like coming up with the plan and then trying to execute it. And all these people are just lackeys that are executing the plan that he's come up with. But honestly, I'm like, does he really only care about Greenland and the Panama Canal, and it's everyone else that's forcing all this other stuff to happen? Mm-hmm. And the only reason that he keeps these people around and lets them do what they want to do is because he doesn't have to work very hard at that point. And because he knows that it'll keep him elected. Like, at the end of the day, it'll keep him elected. I'll tell you what, this is, the implications for this, sadly, I don't think will be huge on his presidency. It'll certainly be mar on his presidency, but it won't impact voters like it should. Mm-hmm. Whereas, you know, my dad to this day believes that the release of the report against Hillary and her emails, or the timing of the, you know, investigation into Hillary was the reason that she lost the election that she lost. So anyway, it's unfortunate. Okay. Speaking of really bad governing, can we talk about the economy? And I know we have a lot, actually more important probably items on our list. But the reason I want to bring up the economy next is because, to be perfectly honest, it's the thing that most people said that they were going to vote for him on was the economy. And so we know that it's like super important to voters of what's happening with the economy. I know that my husband is just beside himself about how bad we're running the economy. So White House aide Peter Navarro said Sunday that he expects President Donald Trump's tariffs to bring in $6 trillion in revenue in the next decade, which could amount to the largest tax hike in U.S. history. The message is that tariffs are tax cuts, tariffs are jobs, tariffs are national security. Do you know, I read today that there is not one car that is 100% made in America? You know, the whole idea is like, oh, we're going to make sure American products are the ones. There is not one vehicle. If you think buying a Ford or buying a Chevy solves this problem for you, you're fucking dumb. There is not one car that is 100% made in America at this point. Most economists say U.S. imposed tariffs will end up being paid by American businesses and consumers in the form of higher prices on imported goods not paid by foreigners. Duh. Like, that's a goddamn duh. If you don't know that, if you believe in that, oh yeah, it's going to be the foreign countries that pay these, and that the retaliatory tariffs are not going to be hugely damaging to us, you are so fucking stupid. I have a bridge to sell you. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? So we know that Trump plans to announce additional tariffs on Wednesday, which he has dubbed Liberation Day. That's also the day hello.
I mean, and what are we liberating from? I don't understand what that, I guess I'm not smart enough, not economically savvy enough to understand what I'm being liberated from exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Me neither. I don't know it either. But he's announced tariffs on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada, and 25% tariff on all imported cars is set to take effect, which, remember, is just about every car that is sold. I read a tweet today, and I wish I could give credit to the person that said it because that's the appropriate thing to do. So maybe I'll add that in a comment. But I read a tweet today that said China, Japan, and South Korea are all working on a joint response. If you can get those three governments to join together to work against you, that is exceptionally bad governing. And I was like, that is 100% the case. Like, if you can get these countries that never work together to be able to work together to like ban against you,
yikes.
That's bad. I mean, he said on day one, I will lower prices. How many times do we hear on day one, I will lower fucking prices? And everything is more expensive. I went to the grocery store the other day, Nicole, and maybe I'm just being a whiny Karen. We'll talk about that later. But I went to the grocery store the other day and all I bought was enough for one dinner and breakfast. And it was $122. Like every single ingredient I bought was like $5. I bought milk. Milk is like $5.70. I'm like, holy shit. And I know that we live in the Midwest. And so we are insulated from a lot of those price hikes where I'm sure people on like coasts and in major, yes, how can anyone who voted for this man based on the economics of it all, how are they not livid right now?
Well, and the Department of Ag over the weekend canceled like 500 million or something like that in contracts. So harvesters locally here, harvesters is like, this is going to be real tough for us to do back snack program for the kids in school. It's going to be real hard for us to fill the food pantries. I mean, I know that the food pantry my daughter works at on her college campus, it is specifically for the kids on campus. They just have to come in. They show their student ID. They can take anything they want and it costs them no money because the food is donated by harvesters and other different places like that. It's strictly for these broke ass college kids to be able to come in, and they don't have a lot of fresh fruits and veggies. They will occasionally, but a lot of it is frozen meals. It's
and canned,
flour, it's staples, it's milk, it's things like that. And I mean, like it's,
to your point, so my parents did back snacks for years and years and years and years. And the number of times that I heard this is the only reliable source of food for the family over the weekend. Like it's not just, this kid got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Because it's like a can of corn, a thing of mac and cheese, whatever.
Peaches,
right. It's what that family lives on all weekend long until the next week. It's amazing to me that those are the aids that are going away. And now everything's going to be more expensive. There's going to be less availability of those types of things. And I just, the people that thought that they were voting for a better economy, Donald Trump's done a lot. If there's one thing you can say, he's done a lot in 70 days. And the one thing he hasn't done is the thing he promised to do on day one. And that you've got to be angry about that, right? Like, I'm not crazy, right?
How can you not be angry about it? Especially because the man sits on interviews and says before Congress, I mean, there's going to be some pain. It's just going to be a short amount of while. Pain for who? Not for you. Not for your wealthy ass donors.
Yes.
For the people that voted for you, for the people that didn't vote for you, for the American fucking public, it's going to be really goddamn painful. And they don't care.
No, not at all. Because they know that this is what they have to do to make sure that they can get their tax cuts so they can become more, which like poses the question of how much wealth is enough wealth, but I don't want to get into that. All right. The one thing that I will say that this really harkens back to the slogan for the whole movement is Make America Great Again. It is becoming more and more evident to me, like what America we're trying to bring back. And it is by far the 1920s robber baron, like concentration of wealth in a few wealthy individuals. And I just, the more I see from this administration, the deregulation, getting rid of things like OSHA and the CFPB and labor unions and blah, like it is 100% like we are trying to go back to a time period when all the wealth was left unchecked and was left in the hands of the richest Americans and everyone else suffered. Okay.
Yep.
Speaking of going back to that time period, Florida wants to repeal laws for children so that anyone 12 and over could work for them and take up these jobs that they now don't have immigrants to cover.
Yep.
And, you've seen the black and white pictures of the kids with dirty faces coming out of the mines.
Yeah.
Yes. That's 100% what I'm thinking here. Like that's what it's going to be. All right. So can I tell you that a friend of mine posted this on her Facebook page and another person that we work with responded with, actually, I should read this to you because it really is.
Oh God.
Yeah. The response was good and I don't want to mess it up. So.
I have a quote from good old Ronnie DeSantis that I want to on this very subject.
So the person that posted said, "Why is anyone okay with this?" And the response that this other person gave is, "I had 3 different paper routes when I was 12 and sometimes mowed lawns. It taught me responsibility and put money in my pocket. I didn't have time to think I was a furry or confuse myself on which gender God gave me."
What?
You're right. Because no one that has a job is confused about their sexuality or contemplates being the furry. Right. Excellent point, sir. I completely understand what you're saying. Oh my fucking, this is what we're up against. Up against.
Yes.
So there have been a lot of responses since I read that. So I'm excited to read the responses to this. But AJ wanted to get a job this summer. He's 14. He wanted to go work at like the community center or whatever. Yeah. Okay. He's just starting to get into Blender. He's really excited about like his flight simulator and he's buying a new like flight simulator thing with his birthday money. And while we were in Grand Canyon last week, he developed like this big fascination with photography and planetary photography. I'm like, AJ, those are all really cool hobbies and interests that I want you to spend time with. If you have a job, you won't be able to take the time to learn those things. Yep. I get that we want money, but at the end of the day, like for what? What do you think you're not able to, if we were a family that was like desperate for money, that's different. We'll have a conversation, but we don't. We can allow you to have these next couple of years until you start driving. You have to earn money so that you can like afford insurance and shit like that. Well, I'll probably pay for his insurance, but for gas and shit like that. Running around cash, that's different, right? But at the end of the day, I want him to have these summers so that he can learn and explore those things. Exactly. Yeah. And if he doesn't have the time to do that, he won't do it. I already know, like those will get pushed aside.
I mean, as somebody who started working at 15 and is clearly still working at 46 because I just didn't do shit right at 15, I guess, and properly invest my money.
I guess.
I was a huge proponent of Riley doesn't start working till she's 16. Yeah. I wanted her to be able to drive herself to and from work because then I felt like, not because I didn't want to take her to work, but because I just felt like for whatever reason I equated that with, okay, if you want to get a job now you do. But school and that kind of shit never came before a job. And I mean, I was working 2 jobs in high school and I had no business doing it. And
that's
no
crazy.
One in my house gave a shit that I was working 2 jobs. And you know what I mean? Like, it was just, if you want specific clothes, if you want running around money, and I had to pay for my own car insurance, like those things, you know what I mean? But I'm like, this idea of we're going to lift child labor protections so that we can offset what this administration is doing with immigrants with our children is not okay. In this quote, can I read this quote to you? Because it fucking sent me over the edge. So this law that they want to pass in Florida would allow the state school children to work overnight shifts without a break, even on school nights. The bill that progressed this week through the Republican-dominated state Senate seeks to remove numerous existing protections for teenage workers and allows them, in the Florida governor's words, to step into the shoes of immigrants who supply Florida's tourism and ag industries with dirt cheap labor. What's wrong with expecting our young people to be working part-time now? That's how it used to be when I was growing up.
No, it wasn't.
He said that, quote, at an immigration forum with border czar Tom Homan in Sarasota.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got my...
Because guess whose kids aren't working?
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis's.
That's right. That's exactly right. You're exactly right. And I remember when I was 16 and we did hire some kids that were younger. And then I worked in a restaurant when I was 18. And again, we had like bus boys and bus girls that were younger. Yep. And it was so specific about how late they could work on school nights. And they couldn't work past like 8 o'clock. And like, these are the regulations and protections that have been put in place. And so you've seen all sorts of regulatory agencies get dismantled through DOJ.
Yep.
That's bad enough. But that is just laying the groundwork for these types of protections being taken away.
Yeah.
So that businesses can exploit kids who have no business working until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning on days like that they have to go to school. That's just insanity. And if we're not putting those types of restrictions in place, like, to me, it's again, it's going back to like the 1910s, the 1920s. Like, how insane is this? How insane is this?
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that, like, okay, if you don't stop saying that foreign workers are stealing American jobs, if you can't find anyone to work these fucking jobs,
if now we're going to have 14-year-olds fill those fucking spots. I want to see all these
12-year-olds.
Yeah,
right.
I want to see all these white men that are like, my job's being stolen every time they get laid off. Sign the fuck up. It sounds like we got blueberries that need to be picked. The fuck are we
indeed.
doing?
That's exactly correct. Okay. Speaking of the 1920s, I did not realize that it was not an actual constitutional requirement for presidents to only run for 2 terms until FDR ran for. Yeah, I didn't know that. Like, I was shocked. But Trump today has, and recently, has really hit home with the third term. Trump told NBC that he is not joking about the possibility of serving a 3rd term. When asked how he would get around the Constitution, Trump said ominously, there are methods which you could do it. He talked about, so the reporter made a comment like, oh, what if JD Vance ran and then stepped down and handed it to you? He's like, yep, that's an option. Okay. Anyone else fucking terrified? Anyone else fucking terrified?
Yes, and I had seen a picture. This was a while back during CPAC when they were doing the shit at CPAC. There was a meeting. I don't know what it was because I don't understand enough about CPAC to know what they were doing. But there was a banner that had been put up with Trump's face on it. He looked like a kind of like a what am I trying to think of? Like he was Greek. Like he had like the thing around. You know what I mean? Like a Greek god almost. And it was talking about not the 3rd term and beyond is how I think the banner was phrased at CPAC. So like they've been floating this for a while and now it's starting to get traction because now he's talking in interviews about it. Yeah. And I just,
like we knew it was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen. We've been talking about it since the first day that we had this podcast. We knew it was going to come up. But to your point, the fact that we are only 70 days in. In all fairness, Trump was the one that was like, I need to focus on the current. I need to focus on what's happening now. But make no mistake that if he's talking about it to MSNBC, he's talking about it to his insiders. And they're already working on this plan. Yeah. What's it going to look like?
Okay. So let me ask you this. We're 581 days, right, till the midterms. So for now, he's focusing on the president. He's got all these tariffs he needs to do, like all these things, right? Yeah. What happens in another year? Because in order, he would have to get the thing ratified through Congress to change the 22nd Amendment. So
Yeah.
if you're going to do it legally, which nothing this administration has done has been legal, so not really sure that we're going to do it this direction. But
Right.
do we see this really ramp up in another year? If they start worrying that they're going to lose the majority in the midterms to try to make a change to the Constitution? Or do you think
It
we
would
just
not-
say, fuck it, we're going to wing it in 4 years and see what happens?
No, I think you're absolutely right that it's like, okay, we're getting closer to 2 years. Trump's approval rating, we've already seen, is starting to tank in all the polls. And in actually, like, I think I was listening to the Tangle podcast and they were saying that they don't usually like to talk about polls, but because all the polls are showing some consistent movement from Trump going from an approval rating that's like higher than his disapproval rating. Now his disapproval rating is like becoming quite a bit higher than his approval rating. Now I absolutely think that if they're contemplating a legal process to either ratify the 22nd Amendment to take that away, or they want to set precedents that like federal judges or whatever don't have any, whatever. Yes, I think we're going to try and get that done before we possibly lose a whole bunch of seats in the House and the Senate. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So speaking of major races, the next major race since Donald Trump took office is coming up this week. We don't have anything major other than like a school board or whatever that I know
local
of.
Stuff. Yeah.
But I'm hearing all about this Wisconsin Supreme Court race. So
yep, Wisconsin and Florida both have major ones tomorrow.
Major races. That's right. So the Wisconsin one is particularly upsetting to me because, voters are going to be voting tomorrow on the newest Supreme Court justice. Liberals have their judge that they're backing. Conservatives has a judge that they're backing. It's become this huge race. But the biggest thing is that Elon Musk went to Wisconsin, made up a bunch of information about gerrymandering, that this was going to like come down to like, oh, the future of our democracy is in your hands. And then decided to hand out $1 million checks to voters. He was allowed he decided to hand out $2 million checks to voters. And here's my thing. There is no doubt in the Wisconsin law, it is illegal to pay voters to vote. It is illegal.
Yep.
They tried to stop him, and the Wisconsin legislature said, we're not going to file charges. Go right ahead. And so he was able to hand out these 2 fucking checks. Okay. What the fuck?
And this is after this is after he's poured millions into the race.
Millions. That's exactly right. Like, how insane. So I get the idea. Wisconsin's a swing state. I get it. I will say that when reading a lot of like the local news reports, they're saying that Wisconsin counties are in general moving more liberal, which is extremely encouraging, obviously. And I get that it's an important race, but it's just shocking to me that, okay, Elon is violating the law clearly. And the state's like, nah, I'm okay with it.
Exactly. We declined to press charges.
Right. Why is that? Why did that happen? Why?
Yeah. And I don't. Yeah.
I don't understand.
We can't stop it anywhere, right?
That's right. I'm like, okay, well, is it really the fact that like, oh, whoever happens to be in charge gets to decide what to do is absolutely fucking asinine. You know, in a company, that's how a company runs. And I get it. Like, if I disagree with my product owners, but my product owners are like, this is how it's going to be, I am perfectly fine with just feeling like, okay, the product owners decided this, let them do what they want to do. But if someone is breaking the law, the fact that it's up to like, you know, the people, the government to be like, we're going to uphold some laws and not uphold others. Now, don't get me wrong. I get the idea that sometimes, like, I drive 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. I always have. I always will. I get it. Like, but on the other hand, if someone gave me a ticket, I'd be like, well, I deserved it and I would pay the fucking ticket. I expect to be held to those laws when they're pointed out to someone. And the fact that like because this seems so unethical that, we're going to pay $1 million to voters to get them to get out and vote is just absolutely crazy to me.
So this is interesting because I hadn't read up on this. Okay, so a unanimous state Supreme Court on Sunday refused to hear a last-minute attempt by the state's Democratic AG to stop him from handing over the checks to 2 voters. The ruling came minutes before the planned start of the rally. 2 lower courts had already rejected the legal challenge. And then it says the state Supreme Court, which is currently controlled 4-3 by liberal justices, declined to take the case as an original action. The court gave no rationale for its decision.
Yep.
And Musk's attorneys argued in filings with the court that Musk was exercising his free speech rights with the giveaways, and any attempt to restrict that would violate both the Wisconsin and U.S. constitutions. Now they give a shit about the U.S. Constitution? Supposedly. He literally said you had to prove that you had voted in a specific way in order to be eligible to receive one of these $1 million checks.
Yep.
That's paying for your vote. Like, he was very clear how they had to have already voted.
Yep.
These are early voters. These people weren't waiting to vote till tomorrow. These people were early voters and did so in order to receive these checks. He's like, I don't understand what we're doing.
I don't either. I don't
understand what we're doing.
I don't either. I really don't. It's the goddamn Wild West out here, and I'm shocked by this. And I'm surprised that we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with this. Okay. Moving on.
Yeah.
Can we talk about let's talk about the Georgia miscarriage. Because I don't think you had heard this.
I had not heard about this. So yes.
I read about it this week and I was just like, holy fucking shit. A Georgia woman has been arrested when she had a natural miscarriage and threw the remains away in the garbage. So this woman named Selena something. She has a long name. I'm looking it up. Selena, it doesn't matter. Anyway, this woman, she has a miscarriage. Selena Maria Chandler Scott. She's 24. She lives in Tifton, Georgia. She suffers a miscarriage. She is not doing well. She's bleeding out. She puts the miscarriage in a trash bag and put the trash bag in a dumpster outside of her apartment building. She gets reported by another woman that they saw her put a bag in the dumpster, and it sounds like they knew that she was suffering a miscarriage. Who knows why? The story didn't tell me that. At the time, they took her into custody and decided to rush her to the hospital for medical treatment because she was doing so poorly. Yes, she was hemorrhaging so badly. She was not doing well. They end up detaining her, and she is still in custody today, which, by the way, this was on March 20th. So it's been 11 days. She's still in custody, and they finally charged her with 1 count of concealing the death of another person and 1 count of throwing away or abandoning a dead body.
It's not a person or a body.
They did an autopsy. They confirmed that the fetus never took a breath. There were no signs of injury or trauma. It absolutely was declared a natural miscarriage. And it was
How far along was she?
19 weeks. 19 weeks. And this woman she is facing up to 10 years in a federal prison for her charges. This is where we are at in this country. Women, just tie the tubes, do whatever you can, because you think I'd never have an abortion. This is a woman that had a miscarriage. She had a miscarriage. And so reporters asked the police department, hey, when something like this happens, what am I supposed to do with the remains then? And so we've now seen someone who has been arrested because they buried the remains. And we have had someone who was arrested because they flushed the remains. So they're like, what do we do with the remains? And they're like, we don't know, but this isn't it. You concealed a dead
But we've
body.
decided that nothing that you do is going to be okay. And so
Exactly right.
we're going to punish you no matter what you do.
That's right. And so to all the women out there who are like, oh,
Yep.
what, this will never happen to me. This will never happen to me. I am telling you, you can have a miscarriage. It will happen
but
to
for
you.
The grace of God.
That's exactly right. There, but the grace of God. Are you fucking insane? This 100%. You can be a woman who actively wants to have a baby and is working to have a baby, and you could have a miscarriage and end up in jail for 10 fucking years because you don't know what to do with the baby after you have a miscarriage.
Yes.
How depressing is that?
As someone who has been through a very traumatic birth experience.
Yeah.
And has sat on the side of sat with all of this shit since Roe v. Wade come out and realized that if I had to go through that situation again in this state before we voted to ratify the state constitution here in Missouri, if I'd had to go through that situation, I would have died because my liver was already and kidneys were already shutting down before they did an emergency procedure. I would have died because my doctors would have been waiting for someone to tell them that it was okay to intervene and they wouldn't lose their license.
That's right. And
so that's number one.
And nobody would do that. They won't do that. That's right.
No. And number two is, as someone who has gone through a traumatic birth experience, at 26 weeks, I can tell you that the size of my fetus was larger than at 20 weeks.
Yeah.
So, and he weighed a pound. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's not fucking confuse what this is.
Yep.
I was 6 months pregnant.
Yep.
He weighed a pound. This is not a 8, 9, 10 pound healthy born baby. That's not what this is.
No. Exactly.
That's not what any of this is. And
that's right.
Fucking infuriating that no matter what women do, we have to rip open our wounds consistently for people to fucking listen to us. And even then, it's sorry, but what about the unborn?
That's right.
That's super traumatic for you. I'm sorry. What about the unborn?
But they're not sorry. Nobody speaks
for the unborn.
And at the end of the day, this was out of her control. You know she's bleeding continuously, enough so that she has to get rushed to the hospital. So you know she's not in her right mind either. You know that she's dealing with something, to your point, that is very traumatic. And she didn't, Republicans have hid behind just follow the law for years now. And this is someone who her body just had a miscarriage and there's nothing she could have done about it.
Nope.
And there's no prescribed, if you have a miscarriage, put the baby in a blanket and take it to the hospital or take it to the police. Right. There's nobody that's telling people this is what you do to avoid persecution. So you're just guessing about what to do. And at the end of the day, you have no idea. Mm-mm. And yet we're still charging and holding these women for 10, 11 days until she finally gets to go to be tried for this. Mm-hmm. It's so goddamn depressing. I can't even talk about it.
Because if men could become pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament.
You betcha. 100%. Okay, let's talk about the other, because we're at a really heavy spot in this conversation. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the other thing that is absolutely fucking terrifying. Mm-hmm. You and I, on every podcast for weeks now, have been talking about ICE detaining people that either aren't getting due process. So there was a comment that was made on our YouTube channel. And in general, I love the comments. Please feel free to post them. But the comment was about how it's totally normal for countries to utilize prisons in other countries that are cheaper, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is these people are getting detained and held and sent to prison without due process. Due process is supposed to be in place for anyone and everyone. And the fact is that that is not happening. We all saw the video this week of the student who was absolutely snatched, fucking kidnapped off the fucking street.
On the streets. Yeah.
Describe to me how terrifying that looked to you, because I know for me, I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
I couldn't hardly fucking breathe when I was watching it, because when I was first watching it, I wasn't sure what I was seeing. And then as like I'm listening to what they're saying, that like, you know, she was on her way to break her fast for Ramadan. She had written an article in a student newspaper at her college that they clearly didn't agree with. So now they've revoked her student visa. And Marco Rubio's out here saying shit like, well, once we revoke your visa, now you're here illegally, we can take you. But typically they announce to this person, they notify them that they're revoking the visa, and they give them like 5 or 10 days to get out of the country. We don't snatch them off the fucking sidewalks.
Right.
We don't snatch them off the fucking sidewalks. And it was terrifying to watch these grown men, so much bigger than her. And she's trying to resist them, and these cars are driving by, and I'm trying to think to myself, like, what would I have done in that situation? If it had been, if I had just been walking past her on the street, what would I have made the assumption that she had to have done something wrong? Yeah. And just like I don't know. I don't want to think I could do that.
So that's a great point. Like if you're seeing someone, I feel like I would have called the police, because it looked like a kidnapping.
There was nothing to identify these men were anything other than men rough handling this woman on the fucking streets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And to your point, like it even took them some time to show their badges. Like it took some time for them to tell them where they were coming from, which again, why you would not think that, oh my God, I'm getting kidnapped. I would have thought I was getting kidnapped.
Right.
Like, well, yeah, it looks like a war-torn fucking country at this point. Yeah. Like that's what it looks like. And these people are not being granted any rights, any due process, any ability to show up in front of a judge. It's insane to me. This is absolutely fucking insane to me.
And I saw a comment on social media today about this very subject, and they were saying only citizens are allowed due process. First of all, that's not fucking true.
That is not true.
Everyone in this country is allowed due process. But second of all, let's say that was true. Let's say, for the sake of your argument, that only citizens are allowed due process. What happens when they decide you're not a citizen? If that's all it is,
that's the thing.
This little shred of citizenship, and they say, we've decided you're no longer a citizen, and they detain you, and they don't give you due process, you have no way to prove you're a fucking citizen, you dumbass.
Right. What if you are a naturalized? So I read an article today about a guy who is a born in the United States citizen. So as naturalized as you can be, but he looks Hispanic, was detained. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, nope, you're not a citizen. And he's like, yes, I am. Where do you think you are making your case that you're a citizen?
Right.
It's during the fucking due process.
Yes.
It's during that. Like
it's with a jury of your peers after you've been charged with a fucking
crime. Right.
Where do you think you're Hispanic looking?
Right. Where do you think it is that you get to make the case that I am a naturalized U.S. citizen? Where do you think you make that case? Are you fucking stupid? That's where you make the
interrogation room. That's not where that happens at.
That's right. That is not where that fucking happens. You people are so goddamn stupid.
And it's fucking frightening.
That's right. It is, because at the end of the day, you and I have a podcast that somebody could come along and be like, oh, you guys don't agree with Trump, so you're treasonous. You're no longer a U.S. citizen. We're going to detain you. And now we're stuck in El Salvador for the next 5 years. And there's
and I'm not cut out for hard labor. Bitch.
Me neither. Once you're detained, I am
not cut out for hard labor.
Right.
Yeah.
Once you're detained, to your point, you're lost. You're lost. There is a man who says that I was reading an article about a man who said that he was a naturalized citizen because his mother obtained citizenship when he was still a minor. So it's supposed to carry to your children. There was an act that, and so he's trying to, basically be like, hey, I deserve due process for me to make my case. He has been detained for 2 years and has not had the opportunity to be in front of a judge. 2 years. And he's been detained that whole time. Like, how insane is that? Okay. Next. Can we talk about Greenland? JD Vance is there. That's right. JD Vance is there. His wife was supposed to accompany him, and then she canceled because they went house to house trying to find a day in the life person for her to like hang out with, and nobody wants them to come. And
no, they were.
I saw a MAGA hat that said "Make America Go Away." Did you see that?
No, that's hilarious.
Yep.
No, but
I saw a red.
They were only there for like a couple of hours, and they never left the military base.
So, and while he was at the military base, there were reporters that said he would turn to a lot of the soldiers and be like, it's cold as shit here. Like that was the thing that he was telling right. Like, this is what's representing us. I feel so much better now. So yeah,
Nice.
This big trip to Greenland, of course, Trump and JD Vance have come out and
Didn't
said,
convince anybody to.
That's shockingly, no, they're not. They have not decided to join the U.S. Shockingly, I'm so surprised. So yeah, Greenland is the one thing that apparently we really believe in, and we are nowhere closer to getting Greenland to become the 52nd state. Apparently, I know we have a couple of other items on the list. One of the things was the new stance of our Department of Justice that people that are protesting Tesla are labeled as domestic terrorists now, and that all cases against those people will be counted as domestic terrorism acts. Mm-hmm. Also, can I tell you,
a fucking car?
Right, this whole Elon Musk, I don't understand why people are so mad at me bullshit. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. And did you hear that he's been surpassed by some Japanese company for electric vehicles in Europe? As like the top seller of electric vehicles, he's now like, his company's been surpassed by some no-name company I've never fucking heard of. I know, I loved it too.
I love it.
So we have that. We also had today, they announced that they are resetting the press briefing room at the White House to better reflect how news is consumed. I think you and I both believe that now Joe Rogan and Fox News will have a front row seat while all reputable news companies will be relegated to the back.
They'll be,
love this.
I'm sure, either all the way to the back or maybe just somewhere else down Pennsylvania Avenue. And like if you
down the hall, exactly.
Right. Yes.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Okay. But I wanted to tell you another story that I read about this week. It is not politically related, but it's tangential. And you'll see why when I tell you this. A Walmart employee, a cisgendered biological woman who happens to be just under 6'4", was fired from Walmart this week because she entered a woman's restroom. Remember, she's a Walmart employee. She goes into the women's restroom. A man follows her in and screams at her being a transgender and that he's not going to let a bunch of pussies into a women's restroom with his wife and daughter. And she needs to get the fuck out.
First of all, that's all that's in the women's restroom is a bunch of pussies.
Indeed. So the employee leaves, diffuses the situation and leaves. She tells her immediate supervisor that, hey, this happened. The immediate supervisor is like, okay, just stay away from him for the rest of the day, whatever.
And this guy's a customer.
This guy's a customer. They do nothing to the customer. The next day or the next week, she is brought into the general manager's office and is fired for being a security threat. She's told the reason that she is fired is because she did not tell the salaried manager and instead told the hourly supervisor of her position. And so because of that, she is being fired as a security threat. Can you believe fucking Walmart? This is why I refuse to shop at fucking Walmart.
Okay, but here's my thing. We know that was bullshit, right? We know that this guy made a complaint to somebody at Walmart, and they said, well, we can't very well pull her in the bathroom and demand to see her genitals, so we're going to come up with another way to fire her.
Yep, that's exactly correct. Even though she told them she is not transgender.
Told her supervisor. Was the salaried person even on duty? That would be my question. I tell my supervisor that's on duty with me, if you don't run that shit up the chain, not my fucking problem. I told my supervisor.
Yep.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Can you believe that happened? Yeah. So the woman's name was Danny Davis. And it was in a bathroom in Lake City, Florida. She is not transgender. That's right. So 29, she said she was told she'd been fired for not reporting the March 14th incident to higher up managers, creating a security risk. Besides losing her job, she said the incident has left her terrified at how anti-trans sentiment has led someone to threaten her with violence.
I love how she's the security threat and he's the one that followed her into the fucking bathroom, yelling full-throated about how he wasn't gonna, are you fucking
So kidding? I will tell you that the Walmart spokesman, Joe Pennington, said the company reviewed the incident and has made multiple attempts to invite her to return back to her job with back pay. He said, we want our associates to feel safe and supported in their workplace, and we won't tolerate bullying or threats of violence against our associates or customers. Yeah. Well, I'm really hoping that she is planning on suing the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
So
yeah, because they'll roll over because they won't want that publicity.
Oh, absolutely. But I just want people to know when you support laws and you support politicians that give people permission to treat transgender people that way, this is what happens. Like not all of us
everyone at some point.
That's right. They come because now all you need is to claim someone is transgender in order for them to go nuts. Like,
right.
I don't wear makeup. I have giant sized man hands. Like someone could someday say that about me. And what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Because if someone can lose, like if you support, this is why it's so important to make sure that you don't support anyone that hates anyone this way. So
yeah, you have to pay attention to you have to pay attention to the fucking details. This whole thing of being a one issue voter, it's the economy, it's abortion, it's it's immigration. There's so much more to it. You have got to pay attention to the fucking details.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Okay. I think I have told you all the horrible news that I have to tell you today. So because of that, it is time for our delightful, happy ending.
Yes. Okay, here's what I have for you today.
Okay.
Researchers discover new mechanism for rapid liver regeneration to restore damaged livers.
Oh, thank God. So when my liver gives out
because of this
from all of the alcohol that is required to get through this presidency, researchers are working on restoring my liver. Thank God. I mean, this is the Lord's work.
It is. And you might think that maybe those researchers would be here in the United States at some of our top-notch research facilities. You would be wrong. These are researchers at the National Cancer Research Center in Spain. They've discovered a mechanism that is triggered minutes after acute liver damage occurs, and it could lead to treatments for those with severe liver problems. The future treatments of liver damage include a diet enriched with the amino acid glutamate. The supplementation can promote liver regeneration and benefit patients in recovery following hepatitis.
I mean, it's something.
Right. Or awaiting a transplant. So, yes. This is exciting.
That's a good happy ending.
Yeah.
That's a happy ending I could share with my husband, and he'll be happy about it too.
For sure. Yeah, especially since you were drinking on our last podcast. Like, we got your fix. We've got your fix.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Okay. Well, I think today's episode has been really tough because there have been so much negative stuff going on, but I appreciate any of you that are still sitting here and listening. I will say that on our last podcast, we got quite a bit of, we got comments from two people.
Yeah.
One person was just like point by point trying to go after the things that we said. And at the end of the day, like, appreciate your perspective, but I don't have the time or inclination to go back and talk about it point to point. With that said, if you watch this week's episode, feel free to post as many comments as you want because it's always enjoyable to read them. And of course, we do read them and we do try and at least consider them. With that said, we had one person whose comment was particularly amusing.
Yes.
OMG to blah, 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 whiny Karens. With our word, intelligence, complaining about progress. So on the wrong side of history, I just wasted 5 minutes of my life listening to these kooks. By the way, everyone knows a man dressed as a woman from a mile away. I just explained to you a scenario where that didn't happen. That's right. We're in Lake City, Florida. Take all money away from the idiots that don't deserve. Goal is to stop spending money on bad educational outcomes. More money and more bureaucracy doesn't make kids smarter. I think you have actually made the case with how poorly you've spelled things, used or misused punctuation. And by the way, not had like one good sentence structure. It really illustrates how the public school system has failed you, sir, for sure. Insufferable people, watch at your own risk. I got to be honest. I like insufferable. I love being called insufferable. I feel like
that was a big word.
It was.
To be chosen in that context. I love the fact that I've officially been called a Karen for the first time in my life. Because that's not I've ever been called before. So I know that. But I also just want to say, clearly, two things. Clearly, you watch longer than 5 minutes. You don't got to lie. You watch longer than 5 minutes. And then you felt so strong. Like, you want me to believe after 5 minutes, you felt so strongly like abused and maligned that you had to comment? Bitch, you watched the whole motherfucker. Don't even
I know.
lie.
Right. Your happy ending was right. Your happy ending came during the video. We know it.
That's exactly right.
And we're here to provide you that service. So enjoy this week's episode. Yes. I love it.
Yes.
I'm going to get a tattoo that says, "Too unsufferable, watch at your own risk." I love that too. It's fabulous. For any of you that are liking and, are watching this video, we do really appreciate it. And again, we welcome all comments. So feel free to post comments. Can't guarantee that we'll respond to all of them, but if you have comments, feel free to put them out there. Also, please like, subscribe, and share this with as many people as you can. We are trying to get the word out. And of course, if you guys have any tips or anything that you want to see featured, a lot of the stories this week came from a lot of the people that we know and love. So, definitely send those to me. The one thing that we did not get a chance to talk about that I really did want to talk about was the Smithsonian. So I'm going to try and make sure we include that next week.
Hit on that next week.
Yes, because we're really at the point that we're rewriting history. And so it's definitely an important topic that I want to talk about.
Yes.
With that said, thank you all for joining. We love you. Even the guy that called us insufferable Karens, we love you.
Even the guy that wants to pretend that somehow we're in his algorithm when we're not really his cup of tea, you be lying.
Right. We know. We know. And we love you too. I hope you all have a fabulous week, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.